not right. I would fight you on the hill, but I'd be shy.
Here, fuck off, will you? Fresh, yeah?
Dino, what's the story?
Sparky.
How are you?
You're all excited there.
I am all excited. I'm loving this.
You're texting me all week going, there's loads of people getting on to me going, the podcast is great.
It is, yeah, it was getting loads of positive vibes, yeah.
You were sending me texts and all from people. A fella from bleeding Australia or something.
Liverpool. He said it was like two Sparkies in the room. But he loved it, you know, he really loved it. And there was another mate of mine from Liverpool who I sent it to who didn't get it, you know, and that's all right, innit?
What do you mean he didn't get it? Or how did he say that to you? How did he let you know?
He just was like, what's this? And I was like, it's a podcast and me mate. And
does he not get podcasts?
I don't know. I wasn't expecting the amount of positive feedback. And even last night, I was out last night and I was out in a smoking area and this guy approached me who I never met before and he was like, he started saying stuff to me and I was kind of vaguely familiar with what he was saying to me and I was thinking, who is this fella and what does he want?
That's a weird one when people say hello to you like they know who you are.
Yeah, that's what happened, right?
And then you're like, do I know this fella? How does he know me that well? And how should I act?
Yeah, look, so all that was going on in my mind, right? And then he said to me, this was brilliant, right? So he says to me, you know loads of people, don't you? I says, yeah. And there was two girls in a queue. There was a queue and they shouted over, yup, snack box. And I was like, what's the story? And then they said something from the podcast. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And then he said, you haven't a clue who they are. And I'm going, so I'm having a conversation with him saying, yeah, I haven't a clue who they are. But in my mind, I'm saying, I also don't have a clue who you are.
But he's looking at it and he's like doing some kind of meta-analysis going, I'm just coming up to you randomly.
Yeah.
I'm telling you all this stuff. I know you don't know who I am. There's a load of young ones over there and I know you don't know who they are. And we're all playing the game like we all know who
but
each
listen
other is.
to me. Here's the thing, right? He was really, really positive. And so the other stuff doesn't matter.
So in my head, we all know who each other is. This is a little bit like spiritual stuff. We all know who each other is anyway, because we all know what's going on in everyone's fucking head. We're all just bleeding, trying to get on with it and survive and do mad stuff. And like you were out last night at a Talking Bollocks show in the National Stadium, and there's 2,000 people there, and they're all just getting on with it, trying to get on with it, trying to bleed. And
really, really big response to the lads, to the guests. Really good show.
But there's energy there, and that energy is we're all just humans trying to suss out what the fuck is going on in this world.
Yeah.
Like you're bringing on guests and they're talking about their shit and their issues and their trauma.
Sex therapists and all, yeah.
Fucking all that type of stuff. And what's it all about? I think it's all about is just trying to connect with each other. And that's all that dude is doing. And I totally fucking get it.
No, yeah. And look, and even the women that were in the queue and they're saying, yup, snack box and all, they're just connecting. And if I overdo it, I will end up overdoing it. You know what I mean? I'll be in me head, right? But I actually I loved the vibe there last night and I loved what they did. I thought our mate Willie was superb, like Ballymun.
I sent Willie a message this morning. I sang him a little song. Oh, Willie Wade, you're not right. And I'll fight you on the hill, but I am shade. But that was me covering up the fact, this is what I said second. I said, look, Willie, you're fucking amazing. You're an amazing, amazing person. And I think a space like that gives people who mightn't have got the job in RTE a chance to just have a voice and shine and bring that magic.
So Willie was amazing last night. He really like he owned his part of it. I'm not saying the boys are young, which is what we need. We need more younger people in this kind of media. Like, you know, we need their voices and we need their energy and we need, because the two of them are very, very opposite, but very, very together, right? You know, so they were amazing. They owned their space, the way they dress and all that kind of stuff. They had Neil Delamere on and he was very, very good. They had Willa on. They had Ciara Moran on to sing a couple of songs and he was amazing as always. And then they had Versatile. And then they had your woman, the sex therapist woman, Jenny.
So a lot of fucking energy in that room there.
There was a lot of energy, and she was great. I think her part of it appealed to the women. There was a lot of women there, like, you know what I mean. And she did a bit of she done a session on sex therapy, which was amazing. She dressed Calvin as a vagina, and she was showing all the different parts. So when people were shouting up, she was saying, "What's this bit here?" And they were saying, "That's the vulva." She was sculling people with dildos. She was throwing,
Yup, the dildos.
She was throwing dildos into, and I was thinking, imagine the insurance company this morning. "Hello, this is Aviva. I'm after getting the bang of a dildo at a gig.
I have a big black cock in my eye."
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're thinking,
Is that what you were thinking in your head?
of course, that's what I was thinking in my
Why?
head. I guess that's the mad stuff that I think. I'm thinking about the girl in Aviva this morning answering the phone, "Hello," and she's like, this is her first call, and she's saying, "Is the National Stadium, are they insured with you? Because I'm after getting a black eye."
I still have the cock in my handbag. So I was saying to, because I do another podcast, as you know, with Martin called The Traveller and the Countryman.
It's a great podcast.
And I was saying to Martin, I've been on to Martin to get Traveller Woman on Air podcast, right? And he was saying, why? And I said, look, see the boys tonight, they're doing the stadium and they have Jenny on and she's talking about sex and sex positions and all this. And on the last one of the shows, she done the reverse cowboy.
That's right.
And Martin is melting into the ground. And I get it. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I just think the audience, for example, for that type of podcast, for me, it's kind of like a new, young, open-minded, mixed bag of an audience. It's fucking really interesting to be in this country at the moment with that type of stuff going on. Like, who the fuck would have imagined that podcast would be a thing and a couple of boys would be selling out huge venues and people would be...
And it's not only a couple of boys. Like your woman Jenny, she sold out a show in 90 seconds.
Then you've got... In 90 seconds?
She sold out a show in 90 seconds on Vicar Street, and they said they could have sold 4, but she said, "Look, I'll do this one," you know.
And the girls, Vogue and Joanne McNally,
their podcast is huge.
Huge. Like, I think it's amazing. It's inspiring. I sent the lads a little video yesterday. I was in work last night and the night before, but I sent them a little video going, "You are inspiring. As much as it's only newish and it can be quite heavy at times, you know, you are inspiring. So take whatever you want from that."
But then there's loads of brilliant podcasts. Like, there's a couple of young fellas in Ringsend, 3 Left Feet, absolutely amazing. Young people, great presenters. Like, they have a natural skill to do what they're doing. They interviewed Owen O'Brien from Sinn Féin, and this podcast should be given to schools to teach schools what is politics, because Owen O'Brien explains it in such a simple form, right? And I think, so this is what I think of podcasts. So I think when I was a kid, right, and I'm going to bring it back to music, you had Jefferson Lake and Palmer and all these bands, right, that were...
Sounds like a salad to me.
There you go. But they were like bands that were these kind of super bands that traveled around in their own airplanes, you know, Led Zeppelin and all these kind of bands. And they had airplanes, they had all these big stage shows. So it wasn't achievable for a young fella from Ballymun to be able to be in the next Led Zeppelin. But it was, because what happened then was you had punk. And punk was all about... So people think punk was about spiky hair and zips and piercing your lip with a safety pin, because that's what the media jumped on. Punk was about DIY.
Yeah, you taught me that punk is an attitude about just let's make it happen. We don't have the
die.
resources, so create the way to make it happen with whatever resources you have.
It's creating the conditions with what you have. So we're here today. We are making a podcast on equipment that we own and we borrowed, right? And we're creating this podcast, and people are listening to it. We have an audience. Now I know it's 40 or 50 people, and that's grand. I'm really happy with that. But this week in the media, we have a whole big question about RTE, you know, and the national media, and the thing is, I've been asking the question, like I put up on Facebook the other day, how can I become a broadcaster on RTE? And the chances of that happening are very, very slim, right? Because there's no pathway for a young person from Ballymun or Darndale or Town or Ballyfermot. There are people like Joe Duffy is from Ballyfermot, right? He's so long in that job, he's now part of the cogs of RTE, right? So I'm thinking, where's the Terence and Calvins in RTE?
I was actually thinking that yesterday.
No, I'm not saying that it has to be Terence and Calvin.
No, but what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be Terence and Calvin, but why fucking not?
And why isn't it Jacinta and Kaylee and, why isn't it...
the 2 girls from the women's
Molly.
shed out in Bleeding Talla.
Yeah, why isn't it Molly and Kaylee and Abby, why is there no pathway for them to the national broadcaster, right? There's no pathway there. There's nobody saying to Access, we're going to run a competition, we're going to do a thing, we're going to get young people from working class areas to run a show. And then even last night I was listening to RT, and I love RTA, I love radio, I love media. I was listening to this guy and he said, I'm going on holidays now, but this guy is going to take over from me. And he's a singer from a band. And it's a real, how do I get that gig? I'm not necessarily saying how do I get it, right? Because I have a job, I'm a youth worker, I'm happy enough.
But how did he get it?
Exactly. And it's got to do with he's in the know, right? I think he's in the know.
The nepotism thing.
The nepotism thing. And that's what somebody said when I wrote up on Facebook, how can a young person from Darndale or Ballymun or Town or Bluebell become part of that RTE thing? And somebody wrote back, they can't, it's a closed shop. And the thing is that thinking annoys me, right? That thinking of it's a closed shop and all that kind of stuff, well then let's just give up. And I think that's where I think, the create or die thing that you're always talking about to me is that if you don't do something, nothing will happen, right? Now, I did a course in this, right, in making radio programs and podcasting, right? And I didn't necessarily want there was a level 5 FETAC, level 5 at the end of it, and I never collected it, right? Because I wasn't interested in that. I was just interested in doing this so that we could start doing this. And I do another podcast with young people, and that's very successful, and it goes really, really well. And I wanted to do that, and I want to do more of this because I see this as punk. I grew up in a punk era where it was DIY. There was people who couldn't play guitars, picked up an old guitar out of the gaff and start playing 2 chords with 5 strings. And it wasn't really about how it sounded or was it in tune. It was about the energy, And I think that for this, it's about the energy. So that's what you were talking about. When I went into the National Stadium last night, the energy was real positive. It was all working class kids and adults, but the energy was really, really super. And I think, so it is possible for people like Terence and Calvin, for people like Willie Boy to be part of the national broadcaster. But maybe it is a closed shop. Maybe that they just created a new lane. You know what I mean? And that lane has a listenership. It's fucking massive. Like the podcast listenership in this country is massive. Huge.
I would say 2 years ago, if you said to somebody, are you listening to any podcasts? Most people would say no.
Yeah.
2 years later, I think it's the reverse of that. Most people are saying, I listen to a podcast now. Yeah. I listen to at least one podcast.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts now and I never did. And it was just got to do with time. Whereas now what I say is, I don't really watch TV anymore. I listen to podcasts.
So the castle that was the national broadcaster or TV wasn't ransacked. It was just bypassed.
I went back to my TV provider and asked them to get rid of my terrestrial channels, right? Because I was paying 106 quid a month or something for it, right?
I haven't been paying at all.
So I just now pay for Wi-Fi because 90% of the time I have the TV on, I'm watching YouTube. And I love YouTube. And I love programs that just normal people make, And there's a guy living in Clare who bought a gaff, him and his wife and his 2 kids, and they are, living a kind of a more sustainable life. And I love all that. And it's just, they're not broadcasters, right? They're not professional filmmakers, but the stuff and the content they make is far more real than whereas, if you watch a similar thing where you have, mountain men, somebody living up, there's always a plot. There's always when you're coming up to the ads, there's always somebody falls or, the chainsaw goes.
I used to watch one with my girlfriend. Yeah, the chainsaw, they were cutting down trees and all. Yeah. And it was the same show replicated. There was a question to be answered at the start and a bit of drama at the end.
Absolutely.
And then insert a load of fish or trees or gold.
There you go. Right, so that's it. And the thing then is that I think people have become bored with that format and are now switching to...
That's interesting because, okay, so there's a few things. I was in work, so I didn't go to see the lads doing their show, but then I had a little bit of that FOMO stuff happening. You know what I mean? Oh, I'd like to be in there. Because I remember, banging around with you and Dempsey and going to all the big gigs and we were in everything. You know what I mean? And it was great, but it was also fucking hard. It was hard on me, hard on my mind, hard on my body. But one of the things I enjoyed from watching, say, the clip of Will singing was just the potential energy in the room. It wasn't predictable. You know what I mean? You've got bleeding Casper and Alex running out on the stage. It's not predictable. You've got a sex educator coming out on the stage. It's not predictable. It could go anywhere. Yeah. And I think that's what you're saying. It's unscripted, but it is scripted. But there's a mad energy there.
I'd say there's definitely a script. There's a format there. They were definitely following a format. And remember, there was 2 nights. So you had Maverick the first night, Maverick Sabre the first night, and Will was there as well. So you had them, the comedians, doing their thing. The format was really good, right? But without them having the energy that they have, or whatever it is, the skills they have, it needs Willa, it needs Neil Delamar, it needs Jenny, it needs Versatile, right? To create the soup. But I think it's a once-off soup. You know what I mean? I don't think that can happen.
I don't know about that, because I was just thinking in my head there, Ant and Dec, right?
Yeah.
So Ant and Dec is a bit more like TV and a bit more
mainstream,
polished or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's a kind of similar energy. You know what I mean? It's 2 dudes that we can look at and go, they're bringing something special to the table here, and they're inviting all these other extra people in to add to the soup.
Can I admit something? I've never watched them for more than 4 seconds.
They made Saturday night entertainment their own thing in the UK for whatever amount of years.
And fair play to them. And the other thing is, you have to remember that there's a full team behind them that creates, there's lighting and sound and script and all that kind of stuff. And fair play, right? And I'm not knocking that. I think there is a space for national broadcasters to have shows like that. Shows like, everybody will knock the Late Late Show, but it is a great show and it does have people listening in. The issue with it is that it's a middle class adult audience that's tuning in, and it always had been since Gay Born days. It has never, and it always viewed youth as outsiders. And I don't know whether you remember that. There's a video on YouTube with Deco from Paranoid Visions and a few other people being interviewed as young people, right? And they were always viewed as outsiders. And when Boyzone came in with Louis, they danced, and it was seen as a joke. Young people are always seen as a joke or as weirdos, as outsiders, right? And the thing is now is that young people have now created their own media through TikTok, through YouTube, through those platforms, right? And so young people are now not tuning into RTE. They couldn't tell you what's on our RTE. Whereas when I was a kid, when we were listening to music, we got our music from Dave Fanning. He was a big U2 fan. He was a big Smiths fan. He was kind of in the line of your man from the BBC guy, John Peel, like, you know what I mean? So he was kind of in that, you know, he kind of followed on from John Peel. He had the Dave Fanning sessions, and because there was no media, because there was no TikTok, that was our thing. We listened to the radio. Dave Fanning will be on at 8 o'clock playing his Fab 50, Fanning's Fab 50, and you go, let's tune in. And that's where you got your music from. There was also pirates. And the thing was then, like, the likes of Ian Dempsey, like, Ian Dempsey was reared very close to where we are now. He was reared in Old Ballymun at the Autobahn there. So he was a DJ on a pirate station. So in a sense, podcasts are a little bit pirate stations, a bit, like, you know what I mean? And you have radio stations like Dublin Digital Radio, like, you know what I mean? That's an award-winning station that runs on the internet. You have 8 Radio. Like, why is 8 Radio not on the national stream? Why isn't it out there? 8 Radio is an alternative radio station run in Dublin. It used to be Phantom. Phantom became part of that Today FM and all that kind of stuff. And it just wasn't making the cut. It went off the air. But the guy who was always behind Phantom, and he set up 8 Radio in a little studio beside Whelan's. And it was like this. It was very much like this. And it was just people who were volunteering and stuff like that. And it was a pirate station, in inverted commas. It only goes out on the internet.
So this is kind of pirate, what we're doing, but it's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
It's kind of punky, DIY, but it's really interesting because, excuse the pun, it has sparked something in you.
Yeah, I have a good energy for it, yeah.
And you're interested in it. And you're coming back, and you said to me this morning, you want to fight for it. You want to make it work. And I'm really interested in why you want to make it work. What do you think this can offer to you? What do you think it can offer to other people? What is the thing? There's a thing there. There's something about it.
And if we name it, it'll disappear.
Do you think? Is that like a porn fantasy thing? I want to hold me mammy's hand and wear wellies. That's not mine, sorry.
Dude. That's a mad one.
No, it's mad for you, but like...
Clogs maybe, but fucking wellies, bro.
Oh, here we go now. So something else was in my head because I was talking to you this morning about the energy in a room like the lads had last night. And we were talking about the energy that we used to have, say, Christmas in Vicar Street with Dempsey 10 years ago. And I would have been doing a lot more drinking and partying and socialising back then.
Right.
And I loved it. And it kind of felt like I was in a privileged, powerful position. And people be coming up to you going, oh, yeah, how's it going? You was bleeding cool on the gang. This is deadly well done. And all I was doing was going, where's the next bleeding? Where's the next point? Where's the next celebrity I can stand beside? And I just find that at this part of my life, I've learned loads of lessons from that. It's a really nice place to be. I was reflecting on it this morning, thinking about it. It's a really nice place to be. And I wouldn't go back and change it and, play it differently, because those kind of days have taught me a lot about myself.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I think the energy that we brought to that was amazing, And I remember me and you joined the samba band years ago, and we spoke about this on the last podcast, and we brought an energy to that samba band, and, we've been part of lots of different things. And I think even Apollo House, I think the energy that you brought to Apollo House was way and beyond anything that anybody else could have brought to it. You said, I said to you this morning, I'm willing to fight for this. I think you were willing to fight for Apollo House because you seen what was going on. You seen the opportunity to occupy the building, and lots of people were behind you, and lots of people were willing to kind of sacrifice something, right? But they weren't willing to sacrifice everything, whereas I think you were willing to sacrifice everything. And I think that is what happens sometimes with the energy, the thing that you're talking about. You're willing to sacrifice everything. Like you hear sometimes of people where they meet a girl in a pub or something like that, and they're just over a relationship, and you say, where's Bucky gone? And I said, he's at the moving to Canada. He met some girl and he's gone to Canada. They're willing to sacrifice everything to, and go for it. People are like, I wouldn't be able to do that. I don't know what that energy is called, where, we are willing to sacrifice everything. We are willing to give it everything. And I think that's what we did. We brought a great energy to that. And that's why we were invited in. It wasn't that we were trying to stand beside celebrities. I'm sure I got some kudos out of that. Like, at the time where I was like, well, I'm in here, I'm part of the in gang or something like that. Maybe my ego was fanned by that. And that's okay. Like, we all have ego. But there was definitely, for me, it was about how people responded to us, and how we were accepted in those arenas and all that kind of stuff. But I do remember going into backstage places and going, the crack is in the pub next door. This is bollocks. Like, this is like, the energy is horrible in here. Like, and I've often left those backstage places and gone, the pub next door to Vicar Street was Kennedy's, like, and they had a karaoke. There was far better crack in there than it was backstage.
I remember going in there with you one day to the karaoke in Kennedy's.
They were calling us tourists. And they said we were tourists. They said, these are tourists from the north side.
Yeah, but deadly. But there was loads of fellas there, right? Like what you would perceive as hard men, outfits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then they turned the karaoke on and they all softened up and they were getting up doing big camp songs like, I'm coming out.
Then that's taking it too far.
No, they were, honestly. Unless, the alcohol I was drinking, that's what it was telling me. What did you say it was called?
No, they were singing the Bee Gees.
The Bee Gees, yeah.
They were singing the Bee Gees. Yeah, you're right, Dean. That's a good observation. They were very tough inner city men, and then the karaoke brought out their inner Motown. It was amazing.
One of the reasons I stopped doing comedy, because I remember doing a gig in Belfast in the Odyssey Arena, and there was like 40 lads up the front, all Scottish rugby players, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they were all coked out our fucking heads. And no matter what any of us done on the mic, There was this energy right in front of us.
Yes.
And I was just like, I don't like this. There's something about this that's not familiar, and I can't relate to it, and I don't like it. And it's probably one of the reasons I stepped back from going out to those types of big gigs in Dublin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not my tribe. It doesn't work for me. And I've said this, I think, to the lads from Versatile before. I seen at their gigs, for example, everyone, you know, on cue, taking out a bag of cocaine, going, yup, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, 20,000 people. Yup, Sally. That's a phenomenon. That whatever that thing is a phenomenon. And I'm sure that those lads are kind of aware because they're setting it up, but they're also unaware of how fucking mental that is as well. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think fame and, you know, I remember listening to Jimmy Judge's podcast, The Twilight Conversations with Glenn Hansard, and if you haven't heard it, have a listen to it, you know, and Glenn talks about being famous in Dublin, you know, and walking up O'Connell Street and people, all right, Glenn, and all that kind of stuff, and people coming over for selfies and all that. But then he said the mad part then was that when nobody approached him, you know what I mean, and how he dealt with that, like, you know. And I think that's like what we were talking about, this celebrity thing, standing beside celebrities. If you went out and you weren't part of that, well then, was your night a success? Like, you know what I mean? If you weren't backstage with Lankham or something like that, you know what I mean? Well, you were just out front. You know, how was that like? You know what I mean? And it's like, I suppose, I remember this girl I knew was going out with this singer, you know, and they finished, like, and she turned up at the gig thinking she was still going to get girlfriend privileges, right?
Love it.
And they were like, no, you're not on the list, you know. And
I'm with the band.
I'm with the band, but she wasn't.
No, you were with the band. Now Sally's with the band. Yup, Sally.
Yeah. So
and
like
next week it'll be Chardon, and then the week after that it'll be me mammy with a pair of wellies on. Or a pair of clogs. Drop the wellies.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. It is interesting. That whole thing. I remember, like, somebody I know was running a gig recently, you know, and they asked this guy, would he come on out of a band, would he come on and play? And he goes, no, I don't like celebrities. And I was like, how dare he? I was kind of thinking, you know, would you not just get involved? And then I thought about it and I was like, no, I like that. This guy is in one of the biggest bands in Ireland. But isn't that amazing that he's that grounded that he's like, no, I'm not into that. I'm just into playing the music and I'm into the gig, like, and happy days. Like,
I seen a thing with, you know, when you're scrolling, you see a little video. It was Paul McCartney, and he was talking about playing a gig in the Deep South.
Right.
And he went in and they said, this gig is segregated. And he goes, yeah, okay. He said, but that's not the way we do our gigs. And your man goes, yeah, but this is the Deep South. And he goes, yeah, but we're the Beatles. And he goes, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we're going to play a gig in front of an audience that's just like together, you know, black and white together.
Yeah.
And they had to, like, he didn't fold. You know what I mean? Paul McCartney they said, this is what we're doing. We're not bleeding, we're not doing the thing. We're not playing the game the way that you think it should be played. We're playing the game the way that we think we should be played. I'm going to use a wanky word here. He didn't acquiesce. He didn't fold. He didn't just play that game by the normal rules. Actually, what he done was, we're going to play, it's our game by our rules. Yeah. And the rules is, we're all one. It's all love. Don't be making it about fucking anything other than that.
And, like, you know, those rules in the South are still there. Like, I mean, there's still black people in America and a majority of people in prisons, like, you know, so that stuff is still happening today. You know, people that were stolen from their homeland as slaves are still treated as second-class citizens, like, you know. Now, I'm sure there's some who are not second-class citizens. I'm sure there's loads of white people who are second-class citizens too. I'm not saying that, but I think, you know, in the majority, you know, and I think that one act of defiance is important, you know. The woman on the bus, you know, Rosa Parks, like, you know, that act of defiance, it happened a long, long time ago, but I can remember her name, you know, and I can remember who she is. So it is important. It didn't stop it. It's still going on. We have lots of, what did Bob Marley say? So much trouble in the world. Like, you know, I mean, there is so much trouble in the world. But yeah, I do think there are movements, there are, you know, creations, there are lots of stuff happening that is very, very positive about being together, like the Beatles or like.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get to is what's the positives? And I think there's fucking loads in a phenomenon like Versatile in front of 40,000 young Irish fans with an act of what you could see as defiance going, no, we're going to do it this way. I just find there's something really interesting in that. There's an energy created in that.
So I don't know what Versatile is, right? So I don't know whether they're a parody. I don't know whether they're half comedy. No, I think rap and hip-hop, and you're the hip-hop connoisseur here, I think some of it is comedy. I think it's, I think it's Shakespeare. It's like...
It's characters.
Characters, yeah. So I think Versatile are characters. I think they've been accused of being sexist and misogynistic and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm listening to them, I hear what they're saying a lot in the normal vernacular. Like I hear it, that kind of stuff all the time. So is art replicating reality, or is reality replicating art? I was watching them last night, and the one thing that was coming off the stage for me was the energy of their youth, right? And here was a group of young people from inner city Dublin who were confident, who were skillful, who were talented, and were able to deliver a piece of art.
And they can host an MC and direct a room. So one of the big things in hip hop is the MC, the master ceremonies. It's not just you can rap, because rapping is actually not that fucking difficult.
I'm brutal at it.
Yeah, but anybody really can do it. You know what I mean? The ABC cardboard kind of rap, anybody can do. The
My
hosting
name is Sparky. I live in Popo. All me mates hang around the shopo.
Boom. It's not that fucking difficult, right? It's a little bit of poetry to a beat, but the hosting and the emceeing and the energy and the reading the room, that's one of the things I really like about the Versatile lads. I remember being at a gig I put on in the Twisted Pepper, and there was a fella that got up on stage, and he was like shouting at the crowd, "You's better bleed and start enjoying yourselves." And I went, that's the total opposite of what you should be doing. What you should be doing is fucking bringing the energy, bringing the love, bringing the hype.
So what they did last night was they planted seeds. There was seeds planted, and then the seeds grew, and they had the audience in the palm of their hand.
And that's MCing, that's hosting, that's what Willie is a bleeding black belt in now.
Willie's in his 50s, I think. He is a master at this thing now.
Master of ceremonies. Boom.
I know, but he's a master of his craft at the moment. Like, you know what I mean? And the thing is, I think he's on the cusp. I think Willie is ready to break. Look, I was down swimming down in Portmarnock last week, and all these young fellas came out onto the pier, and I could hear them talking, and they were saying, "I heard Willie White was down here yesterday. Willie was been down with us, And I was thinking, isn't that amazing that without the RTE, without the Virgin Media, without the Today FM, Willie has made it to the tongues of these young men through the social media, through the TikTok, through the DIY, through the punk media thing,
And why is that important?
Because we never had it before. What we did with pirate radio and all that kind of stuff. But again, you needed money to create pirate radio. But Willie has done it through one, hard work, gigging, but also how he has reached the tongues of those young men is through social media.
Now, I know how. I'm talking about why is it important. And I think it's important because, one, it can start to put bread on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a fucking interesting idea. You know what I mean? You could start relying on it, medium and long term, to put bread on the table. Possibly. That's interesting. It's new for a lot of working class people, especially who are doing like podcasty type of stuff or whatever. You can go to the bank with it, as the man would say.
The most important comedian of the last 50 years has been Billy Connolly. So he is working class, and he got a break. Parkinson gave him a break. He took it from there. He put the work in. He got the gigs. He didn't only do comedy. He did travel. He did all kinds of different things. So he was willing to kind of take the risk. He is working class. Everything that he talks about, his comedy comes from shipyards.
So the gatekeeper there would have been BBC or Parkinson. So now the gatekeeper is basically you. You know what I mean?
It can be.
You're
It
the
can
gatekeeper.
be.
If you get up and do it, you punk it and you pirate it, you can be the gatekeeper of...
But you still need the go louds, and you still need that to kind of to get it to the next level. But it depends on what level you want to be at. I mean, let's take it like, one of the best punk bands ever were the Minutemen. Did you ever hear them?
Never heard of them.
They're the team to Jackass, right? That guitar line. at the start. So that's them, but they were one of the best punk bands ever. But they didn't want to be famous. Now, sadly, the singer passed away. They were amazing, but they were totally DIY. They were in a van going from gig to gig to gig around the States. So it depends on what you want. Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be the next Ryan Tuberty? Do you want to be the next Parter Kilty? Or Vogue? Or, Claire Bourne? Is that what you want? And I think it's definitely doable, but I do find if you're not part of the clique, that's not going to happen. But I think you're right, Dan. I think you're onto something there. I do think there is a new media being created, which is punk, which is the podcast thing. And I think the likes of RTE have missed it, and they should have jumped on it. You know what I mean? And,
I was saying to you last week that, and I was kind of saying it, having a bit of crack, but the energy in this city is in what we're doing, is in these voices, is in this accent. Like if I had 200 grand floating around, I'd fucking bring RTE to court for defaming me or defaming my community. You know what I mean? They've talked fucking down to us for 50 years, and now it's undeniable.
Bobby Sands said, let our revenge be the laughter of our children. This is the laughter of our children. It's us having a bit of crack and going on the podcast and having we're doing it. We don't have to bring them to court, because what's happening is that we can see them crumbling. Their empire is crumbling in front of us because the younger generation aren't interested in them. Whereas instead of putting Dave Fanning and John Kelly and all these people onto Lyric FM and trying to look after their buddies and give them jobs right on Lyric FM, they should be scrapping Lyric FM and creating podcast, RTE Podcast FM, which is what people are listening to, having the likes of Terence, having the likes of Vogue, having the likes of those people that people are actually tuning into and want to hear. They should be jumping all over that, but they can't because they're so far up their own
holes
that they're disappeared.
They're up in the K-hole. I was thinking, the ketamine. The ketamine. If you haven't checked it out, Versatile have a video, right? It's called Ketamine, and it's like, 7 minutes long. It's fucking phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of art. They also have a piece, and they're like dressed up as devils or something like that at a graveyard. I think they might have bleeding shot it up in the fucking Hellfire Club. There's a weird subtext in it, and I think the subtext is the feeding frenzy of drug dealers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's about. It's about the evil part of the recreational drug scene. You know what I mean? Where it turns a corner into manipulation and exploitation, and it's all about paranoia,
loneliness,
fear, insecurity, suicide, that type of stuff. It turns a corner into that. And I think that's, for me, that's what I got from that video. And I was looking at, your mate put up a video of Willie singing at the lad's gig. And I was just looking at it going, in that room, there's people who are lit to the tit, and they're standing beside and holding hands and hugging people who are in recovery. And I think that's a fucking really interesting dynamic. It's really fucking powerful.
I think recovery is the new go now.
100%. Some of the best gigs I was at were like, I'm not in AA and NA, right? But some of the best gigs I was at were AA and NA gigs.
Yeah, I'd love there to be a sober gig in Dublin just to see how that goes.
There's a sober rave a mate of mine runs, Paul Walsh runs.
That's right, yeah.
So
it's coming soon, isn't it?
By the time this goes out, the gig will be over, but he does a sober rave. And it looks awkward and weird at the start.
But there used to be raves in the mornings. Remember they used to have these 6 o'clock raves?
They were called early houses.
No. This was a thing. It was like
it's like a gym thing.
Was it a gym
thing?
Yeah. People went and danced
it was
before
like a
they went to
fitness
work.
kind of thing.
I don't think it was a fitness thing. No, I think it was people went and danced
before work,
and it was I forget.
So I used to go to raves and I wasn't, like I'd have a couple of gargles, but I was never on yokes or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
I only went to
most of the
one.
raves I went to, I wasn't lit.
I only went to one, and they just thought I was a copper. So I just got freaked.
Where was that?
It was up in the National Centre, up in Swords there.
In
Where-
the
where we got our,
equestrian place, is it?
I was going to say where we got our vaccines, but you didn't get them. You believe?
I didn't get the vaccine.
Theorist.
So come here, go back to that other one. The coming together of those two worlds.
Right, so I think there's a whole thing about recovery, and I think, and I'm saying recovery is the new go now. I think I heard in college a young traveller woman saying that she's noticed that there's a lot of older people are now in recovery through alcoholism, through drug addiction, through all those kind of stuff. So she's coming across a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who are now in recovery, right? And I think that's interesting, because when I was younger, I just seen loads of people locked, and people died very young of alcoholism and stuff like that. Now, there always was fellowships, there always was recovery. There was, like, I remember when I was a kid, there was a thing called a pioneer, and it was a Catholic thing that if you wore a pioneer pin, you didn't drink, and it was an absent thing. You abstained.
Not absentee.
You abstained.
Abstention.
Abstained. You abstained from drinking.
I abstain.
Right? I'm staying. I'm more stained than you. No, but they abstained from drinking. And that was a Catholic thing, and it was brilliant. It was the pioneer movement was huge in this country, and it kept a lot of people alive through Catholicism, which is probably very weakened now at this stage. But then you had fellowships which follow on from a 12-step program, which was written less than 100 years ago and is still relevant today. And they follow 12 steps of recovery, okay? And those people will keep it in the day. They'll say, I'm only looking after today. I don't live in the past. I don't live in the future. I live in the day. And they will support each other in rooms of recovery. So
why did they say that I don't live in the past or the future?
For me, if I live in the past, I become depressed. If I live in the future, I become anxious. But
that's the same for me.
Exactly. Now, that's the other thing then. Now, that's an interesting thing that you're talking about, right? Because people with addiction are people. So they'll have the same issues that people without addiction will have, but it will be amplified.
One of the things I realised from talking to people in my own family is there's a point that I can stop.
Yes.
I used to think, oh, fuck, I'm going to be an alcoholic because everyone around me, that was the tendency.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was what I was observing. And I was like, remember being in my 20s going, fuck, I don't want to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I'm not, because for me is, and I don't want to reduce it down, I could stop. I would get really, really fucking drunk, but there was a point where I could stop.
Whereas I wouldn't stop. I would have just continued until I had an autopilot that would bring me home. I was like one of those drones. You know, when you have a drone up in the sky.
The battery goes dead.
The battery goes flashes, and next thing it just returns to home. Like, I was a bit like that.
But you wouldn't know how you got there.
I would wake up and go, yeah, I would black out, and that is a point of where you might ponder, is this becoming a problem, or have I got a problem? I also think that they'll listen to people in recovery and they'll say, we say alcoholism, right? They'll say, well, alcohol was only one part of it. There was the ism, right? And this is the part that I'm talking about that's different from the norm, which is people will have, it could be like an ADHD or an ODD, or it could be one of them, right? But they call it ism. It's the ism that happened to them before they took a drink. And when they took a drink, it quietened the ism down. But then they needed it kind of that much to quieten it down. It became an addiction and they couldn't stop drinking. So then when they go to rooms where they go to fellowship and they go to different things like that, they find a support network of people with the ism and with the same thing, and they try and work together to recover. And that's where the recovery thing comes from,
Recover who they were before
No, there's no going back.
Okay.
But not for me. I think
yeah.
for me, as a person in recovery, I'm in here now, and that's
And
the
the
point
going
I'm
back thing is not the thing you're doing.
I'm not trying to.
The looking
I'm not
forward
trying
thing
to
is not the
find
thing
the
you're doing.
Sparky. I'm not trying to find the Sparky I was when I was 18 because I'm 55 now.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So there was time. I will think about. Jesus, there was a time when I was very carefree and I didn't worry about what people talked about me, right? So instead of me going, I want to get back to that point because I'll waste my energy trying to go back because I can't go back unless I have Marty McFly's car and I can go back in time and arrive at that point. That's not going to happen. But what I can do is I can work on trying to let people's opinions go, trying to mind my own business when it comes to what people think or say about me and let that go.
Yeah, one of the big things I had when I was drinking heavily was the dread in the morning. Oh, fuck, did I actually put my hand on that young'un's arse, for example? Or did I actually say that to that person? And I'd sit in that fucking dread. And it was kind of like there's people out there thinking stuff of me or my behaviour from last night. I wish I could undo that so I could go back to that place.
And here's the thing, because we live in such an alcoholic culture, people will forgive those things. You know what I mean? They won't.
Yeah, you're all right. You're all right.
We're
Sit
all
down there
right.
and have a pint.
Because I'd be full of fear as well. I'd wake up with the fear and I'd say, did I say anything wrong? And I'd ring my mates and I'd say, did I do that? And they would like, yeah, you were up dancing with Mrs. McGuire or something like that. And you're like, oh, no, that was like, so the dread. And you see, what I would have done then was I would have went, right, I'm off it. And I go off it out of guilt.
Oh, would you tell everyone?
I go, I'm off it now.
I'm off it.
I'm going hill walking. I'm going.
I'm at the joining a hiking club. We're going to the Mourne Mountains, and happy days.
I joined a hiking club one time, Dan, right? And so there was these things called meetups, right? And I don't know. I have to be careful.
Sounds like dogging we're bleeding walking boots.
No. This was like, so let's say it was like meetups, right? So let's say you're into origami, right? And you'd find a meetup and somebody would run an origami session in town and all these people who had no friends right, would turn up, right? So it could be people who are new to town, people had moved from the country, people moved from other countries, right?
Desperate fuckers.
I know, but it is a good thing.
Yeah,
you know
go
what I
on.
mean?
Sorry for ripping it there.
No, but if you're one of those people, like, you know what I mean? That's okay to slag them, right? To
If
say,
quilts is your fucking thing.
If quilting or if drones or something like that, there might be a meetup where 10 people will come together talk about drones or CB radios or.
When you say
guitars.
meetup, I think like the lads in the cars doing the drifting. There you go. That's the thing.
That is the thing, but this was organised through meetup.ie or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whatever, right? Now, some people would charge. So you'd have people like saying, right, there's going to be a hike and we're going to meet and we'll have a minibus and it's 40 quid a head.
Yeah, there's a full moon meetup down in Portmarnock Beach. It's a tenner a head. That's a thing now.
I know what you're talking about. This is different. So anyhow, I decided I was giving up the gargle and I heard somebody talking about these meetups and they had 3 hikes, right? So they had the hike for people who never walked before. You had the hike for people who were like, let's go up Lugnaquilla and be up there in a half an hour. And they were all big bearded blokes.
So you had the 5Ks and the marathon runners.
Right. And then there was the middle group, right? So I said to myself, I think I'm in the middle group, right? And I chose that well. You know, I said, I'm in the middle group. And I forget where we were going, but there was this woman there, right? And she was wearing the next thing, the high heel shoes, right? And people were saying to her, I think you should be in the other group. It's like, no, I'm in this group. Right?
I went on a hike with a person like that.
Did you?
Up Lugnaquilla, and it was snowing.
Right.
And she had like gym pants on.
Right.
Like we had Gore-Tex and bleeding.
But what footwear did she have on?
She just probably had runners. No
And
ankle
you see,
support.
this, like, the runners would have been 100 times better than the shoes this woman was wearing. Right? So we're going through bogs. And I actually remember, right, at one stage we were walking around big boggy holes, like we were walking around them so that we wouldn't go up to our ankles in muck. She just was like walking straight ahead. And she had a coat on like that you'd wear down to Kyo's on South Ann Street on a Friday night, like, you know what I mean? And I think she had a plastic bag as well, like as if she was coming from Aldi.
This woman isn't right.
No, she wasn't right. That's the thing. But the problem was that there was nobody there to say you can't, right? So we ended up, half the time we ended up just trying to get her through the day. You know?
She thought she was in the attention seeking group. I'll have 10 people fucking mammying me up and down the hill.
Maybe that was her. I don't think that was her thing. I just think I know she realised, she said halfway through the walk when she was up to her neck in muck, she was thinking, I should have went with the other group.
I think I'm a bit out of my depth here.
So yeah, I would then give up the drink for a month.
Oh, you tell everyone you're giving them a drink, I'm joining the hill walking group.
The hill walking group. I feel great. I'm great. Yeah.
And that's to get away from the fear.
To get away from, I'm not doing that again. I bleeding, fell down your woman's stairs and blah, 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 blah. And I would give it up and I would always, I'd feel good. I could stop, but I couldn't stay stopped. You know what I mean? And then I would go to a fellowship. I would go to a room, I'd go to a meeting, and then I could do that for a little bit and then back to drinking. And it was always worse. It was always like worse than the last time. So then I did stop. I did eventually get to a point where I haven't drank in nearly 4 years. And that this is the best time,
As they say in America, well fucking done, Sparky.
Look, it's well done for today, and that's it. Like it's not. I'm not
No
looking
pressure.
for. I'm not looking for pats in the back. I'm not looking for. That's not what it's about. I think. I don't only do it for me. I do it because of the effect that it would have had on people around me as well. You know what I mean? And that's important. To be better, to be to be doing the right thing, and to be there. And not to be on the missing list all the time.
So, and that's why I brought that up, that dynamic, because you were at the lads' gigs, and I'm sure that you know loads of people there who are in different fellowships and whatever, but you're also standing next door to bleeding, Sniffy Mac bleeding, big lips, or you know what I mean?
There was loads of them. There was loads of big
girls,
lips.
right, sorry. And fellas, I don't get it. But anyway, back to this story. I don't get the big lips. I understand the turkey teeth and the hair. The big lips just looks like you're doing a bit of damage to your body and you just don't need it. You look fucking amazing. But you're in that room and you're in recovery. Is that the right phrase?
Yeah.
But you're also bumping off and chatting to and hugging and shaking hands with people who are in the throes or
so
who
last
are
night,
lit.
So last night there was loads of people lit. We went out to the smoking area and we were chatting to people and there was people lit. But there was also people in recovery that I met that were just happened to be beside me, So I kind of ended up over beside them talking to them. But for some reason last night I didn't get, when you're not drinking, right? And everybody's had this, whether they drink or not, is that when you're around a load of drunk people, it's a pain in the arse.
Yeah, I would have had some kind of resentment or something before.
Well,
if
they're
I wasn't
in
drinking.
a space of detachment, right?
Yeah.
And you're in a place of attachment. Right, so you're attached to reality, and they're detached from reality, and so you're not there. You're not with them, so it's awkward and uncomfortable. But I know people who never drank. People like Philly McMahon never drank, and he goes out and he dances and he has a great time because he's never known anything different.
Yeah, I remember meeting Philly probably after one of the Dublin things or after a demo gig, and it was in say Copperface Jack's or whatever that pub was that Dempsey used to go to, and Philly was in the middle of it, and I'm like slaughtering, trying to get as much alcohol down my neck as possible. And he's just like, all right in the middle of it. And I just thought, that's an interesting space to be.
So when you haven't drank, that's just the reality of it. But I think when you have, and there's an energy there. So last night I wasn't resentful. I wasn't going, I wish I was lit. I wasn't in that space. I was actually quite happy to be the way I was, and I kind of, I was with the people in the room that weren't drinking, you know what I mean? And that was great. And I didn't concentrate on people lit and Elva and people sniffing off coins in the seats beside me. I just didn't get into it. I didn't look at it and get into it. I just went, right, that's happening. It's not happening to me, so get on with it,
And that's the point I think I'm trying to make. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's a fucking really interesting dynamic because 15 years ago when I was out with you doing stuff, that dynamic wasn't there. half of the room, or whatever the number is, wasn't in recovery. It was fucking sporadic.
Well, I've always been around people in recovery.
Yeah, but now half the room, this is the sense I get. Because I see like running groups of lads that I know who are all in recovery and cycling groups, and it's grown and grown and grown, especially through COVID. And it looks like half the room is in recovery. And especially in a community like Ballymun, recovery is the new bleeding
Going out.
5 lines of bleeding sniff.
I was doing a podcast yesterday, with young people, and we were asking about the positives and negatives of social media, and they were saying one of the positive things is that social influencers will talk about mindfulness and stuff like that, and about minding their mental health and stuff like that, right? So people will talk about mental health. So people talk about mental health now much more than they ever did before. People talk about recovery now. Like, I would have been embarrassed to talk about this 10 years ago. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have wanted anyone to know that I was, part of a 12-step program or any of that kind of stuff, right? But the thing is that now I feel like recovery is so much more, it's different. It's very quiet. It's very kind of peaceful and quiet, and, all those kind of things. But it's a much better place to be.
Although I'm not in a fellowship, I'm enjoying my less drinking.
Yeah.
Really enjoying it. And I'm enjoying the quietness and the solitude. I'm leaning into it. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was fucking on edge and bleeding depressed and sad and, mildly suicidal. But now I'm leaning into it a little bit more. And I just think I'm a bit older, I'm a bit more mature. I'm looking, as that song goes, I'm looking at life from the other side now. And
from both sides. I look at life from both sides now.
That's what I was going to say to you. How do you feel about this part of your life? I'm really enjoying this part of my life. And I would have, for the previous 50 years, looked at it going, oh, fuck, I'm going to be 50. You know what I mean? And now I'm going, you.
Well, the reality is I am 55. That's the reality. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. Years and years and years ago, to be old and wise was the thing to be, And people wanted to be older. When you were younger, you wanted to look older and all that kind of stuff. Now everybody wants to look younger. That's what the lips thing is. And so for me, I'm actually, I'm comfortable in, would I love to be thinner? Yep. Would I love to be fitter? Yeah. Would I love a big head of red hair? Yep. But in reality, is that going to happen? No. I can eat a bit healthier. I can walk a bit more and, do those kind of things. But I am more comfortable in myself. I'm accepting who I am and where I am at this particular moment. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying the last 4 years, nearly 4 years of not drinking. It's been great, No, it hasn't been Little House on the Prairie, like, you know what I mean? The Waltons or anything like that. It hasn't been. But that's life on life's terms. I get on with it,
There's a shop in Ballymun, and to say it's like Willy Wonka's stash is an understatement. The only fruit in it is fruit pastels. And I'm telling you, it reminds me of the stories I used to hear about Glasgow.
Yeah.
Where the diet is just like batter this and batter that. And so this shop is the local convenience store. It's just full of sweets, little plastic pills, little jelly pizzas.
Like, if you look at, we've had regeneration in Ballymun, and people wanted a shopping centre and they wanted all these things, But the reason why those shops don't exist in the area is people don't go into them. People don't spend money in those shops. The thing would be nice to have all those kind of healthy eating, organic, food shops. I remember when the shops were built, I was thinking these are going to fill up now, and we're going to have a bike shop, and we're going to have
all the units in Ballymun.
Yeah, all the units, all the shop units. And what happened was there was I think at one stage there was 5 chemists,
5 chippers, 5 off licenses.
Yeah, that's all it seemed to be. It was bookies, chippers, off licenses.
I remember there's a cartoon like Tom and Jerry when they're doing a scene and they're going down the local street, and there's it's like that. It's like the same 5 shops replicated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's every kind of like working class main street or high street. It's funny when I walk into a shop like that and it's just
in your face
confectionery. All it is sugary stuff.
My friend came over to Ballymun. She was going to cook me this dinner, And so she's in the middle of it, in the middle of doing the cooking, and she goes, "Oh, I forgot the cherry tomatoes. Will you fly down to the local centre and get..." I just fell around laughing, like, you know. So I did go down and I got a tin of tomatoes. They weren't tin of cherry tomatoes. They were just a tin of tomatoes. She's like, "That's not what I asked for." And I says, "Well, that's what you're getting, because that's all they have in this shop, you know."
Yeah, they were all out with truffle oil as well.
I think we call the podcast The Batch because that's what Dublin people eat. You know, they eat batch bread. And, you know, when I was growing up, people ate batch and cheese and ham and chips and burgers and, you know, all those kind of things. Like, you know, they fried them in lard in a frying pan, you know what I mean? You know, so there's always been that, like, you know what I mean? And I think, so now it's very sweet oriented. I'm very sweet. I eat a lot of sugary things, you know.
That's probably why it's highlighted for me, because I don't. I would mainly eat, like, I eat a lot of bread. I eat a lot of meat, ham, and all that type of stuff. Cheese.
Haslett.
I love fucking Haslett. No, I'll rephrase that. I love Haslett. I don't like fucking Haslett. That's a different
prawn. There was chicken roll. Remember chicken roll?
Yeah, fucking corn beef, the real gear I can handle, but I can't handle that.
There was cotton beef. There was Haslett. There was brawn.
The story of the butchers that used to be in the shopping centre of Ballymun, and the woman doing the raw meat was the same woman who done the rolls, was the same woman who managed the money. I'm glad that butchers doesn't exist anymore.
You're living in the past.
Yeah, right. Sparky, nice one for that. And I know there's some stuff there that you said that years ago you would have been embarrassed. And if anything, if there's conversations, if there's any reason I want to do this, is to explore or at least talk about in the general area of the stuff that we're ashamed about and scandalised by. Just because, just fuck it, get rid of it. It's a load of bollocks. It doesn't serve us. Fuck it off. That's, for me, that's my vibe for today. So I really appreciate your fucking honesty, man.
I think if it helps somebody to understand maybe that's where they're at, and if they want to contact me, they can. You know, I'm always available to be contacted through social media. Yeah, I think that honesty helps, but there's also anonymity too, you know what I mean? And I think that's important too, you know.
Yeah, I don't really fully understand the anonymity thing, and maybe I don't have to. And you've explained it to me a few times, and so have a couple of other people. So I'm going to leave it there. So people are going to listen to this podcast. They're going to hopefully share it. They're going to hopefully go onto Spotify and like it and rate it. Send it to people in your WhatsApp groups. Get people listening to it. I think it's worthwhile just pushing yourself a little bit and sharing it out. Send it to 10 people in your contact list. Because I think
send it to D Forbes.
D Forbes, send it to Ryan Tuberty's agent. I think I could be up for that job.
You look like Pat Kenny.
I do. I look like Pat Kenny. If Pat Kenny and Dave McSavage had a blading.
That's actually true. So look, thank you, Dean. I'm hoping that it was honest. That's the main thing, is that it's honest and real and relevant. Yeah, so thanks.
It's relatable, man.
Do you want me to sing a song then?
Ray, I'd love you to sing a song. Raymond, Sparky.
You come home late and you come home early. Come home big when you're feeling small. You come home straight and you come home curly. Sometimes you don't come home at all. What in the world has come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? Broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. Well, I got a heart that burns with a fever. I got a worried and a jealous mind. How can a love that could last forever get left so far behind. What in the world has come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? Broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. It's a mighty mean and a dreadful sorrow crosses the evil line today. How can we ask about tomorrow? We ain't got nothing to say. What in the world has come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? Broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. You're out there running just to be on the run.
Here. Fuck off, will you? Fresh, yeah?
Check it out. Check it out, y'all. DJ Mech is gonna check it out, y'all.
What happened to the Beastie Boys? I know one of them died.
One of them died. That didn't help.
I know, but did they continue? Did they do anything? Are they going to do anything? Or are you in touch with them?
I rang thing last week.
Ting?
I was trying to think which one didn't die.
Ting, yeah. Do you know Ting? He hangs around with what's his name? Are you serious? Yeah. His cousin, your one.
Yoke.
From up the other way.
You know her.
That is mad Ting.
I like that one that you say. I didn't even know.
Yup, bro. Out straight. That is fresh.